Right. Hi, everybody. Thursday afternoon at Dreamforce. Oh, my goodness. You are troopers. I know how exhausting this week is, and I cannot tell you how glad you will be that you came to this session today because it is fantastic. A lot of great tips and tricks on Lightning page design from Caitlin Marshall. Really quickly, just so you know, we will leave some time for questions at the end. I'll be walking around with this, or feel free to stand up and use the mic in the middle. Also, we do take feedback very seriously, so please, if you have a minute at the end of the session, just get on the app and send us your thoughts, and we'd appreciate that. With that, I will turn it over to Caitlin. Let's give her a round of applause.
All right. Thanks, Becky. Welcome, everyone. Thanks again for being here. So before we begin, just a quick note that you should base your purchasing decisions only on products and services that are currently available. So I wanted to start by sharing a little bit more about my background. As Becky mentioned, I'm Caitlin Marshall. I'm currently a senior business analyst with 7 Summits. We're a Salesforce Gold partner. We specialize in community solutions. And I've been working with the Salesforce platform for the last 8 years, starting out as an admin and then moving into a consulting role. So I've worked on a number of implementations across a variety of clouds. But more recently, my work has focused on Lightning implementations, and that's been a really great learning experience. It's really made me believe in the power of Lightning. But at the same time, I'm familiar with some of the challenges that you face when you're getting started with an implementation, all of the unknowns and decisions that you have to make. So this presentation will draw on some of the lessons learned from those experiences and things I wish that I had thought about and known when I was getting started. So our focus today will be specifically on Lightning record pages. We'll talk through an overview of the different areas of a Lightning record page and how you as an admin can control them. We'll review a business scenario with common user pain points, and we'll walk through together a demo of how you can resolve them using Lightning App Builder and standard components. And throughout, I'll cover some recommendations on how you can make sure you're delivering a good user experience with your pages. So before we begin, let's talk a little more about why we're here. So as admins, we want our users to be happy and productive. We want to build systems that give them better tools to do their jobs. But there are a lot of pain points and requests that often come up related to record pages. Maybe you've heard similar feedback from your users. For example, users want to be able to access the information that they need without too many clicks. They don't want to have to sift through clutter to find what they need to take action. They want to see visuals that communicate key record details at a glance. And they may have very specific requests to see something that applies just to their group or to see something in a very particular way on the page. And these are all things that, if not addressed, can frustrate users. They can make them feel like a system isn't tailored to their needs. And before Lightning, it could be a challenge for admins to address requests like this without custom development or just needing to come to a compromise. But as we'll cover in this talk, Lightning gives us a lot of new tools as admins to address these types of requests. So your record pages are where users are spending a lot of their time, and as a result, they have a big impact on adoption. So this is definitely a key area to pay attention to as you're transitioning to Lightning. And chances are that you're going to be doing some record page customization. But there are some challenges that admins face when getting started with Lightning page design that I want to acknowledge. The first is that Lightning just gives us a ton more choices in terms of how we can display information on the page. So it's really easy to just put a lot of things on your page, and that can result in a really busy user experience. So it's important to pay attention to making sure your pages are still clear and effective. Second, when you're getting started with Lightning, it can seem like there's all of this new information. I know it was daunting for me when I was getting started to understand where I needed to go to control different areas of the page. And I'm pretty sure I once spent hours trying to figure out why certain actions weren't showing up. But the good news is that not everything has changed. Lightning builds on features that you're probably already familiar with if you've been working in Classic for a while. There are some Lightning-specific things to get used to, like Lightning App Builder, but once you get used to how the old and new features work together, you'll be set up for success. So next, for anyone who's new to customizing Lightning, I want to give a quick overview of how the different areas of a record page are controlled. So the first thing to know is that compact layouts and page layouts are still a thing in Lightning. So you may have worked with compact layouts if you configured Salesforce 1 in Classic. And in Lightning, they're going to control the key fields that show at the top of your record page in the Highlights panel. These are also going to control the fields that show up when you hover over a record link. This used to be your mini page layouts. Next, we have page layouts. So in Classic, these controlled pretty much all of the details of your record page and how it displayed. And in Lightning, these are going to do pretty much the same thing. They're still going to control the fields that show on your page, the related lists that are available to add to your page, the columns that show in your related lists, and the buttons that show on the page as actions. Another important note here is that your page layout controls the related lists that are available to show on your Lightning page. So if you want to show a related list to your users, make sure you put it on your page layout first so that it'll show up. So the main takeaway here is that you want to start by configuring your compact layouts and your page layouts before you do any other customization to your pages. So next, we have templates. So these are something that is new in Lightning. These are essentially a placeholder for components. And this is going to divide your page up into regions where you can put either standard or custom components. You have a lot of options. There's just a few of them displayed here. So when you're planning your page, you want to think about the elements that you want to show and whether those work best in a wide or a narrow page section. For example, if you're using a path component, that works really well in a template that has a subheader section, like the one you see in the top center of the slide here. Another thing to know about templates is that you can't change the template for your page once you've created it, but what you can do is create a couple different versions of your page and then only activate the one that's working the best. So next I want to show a quick demo of how to create a new record page. So first we'll go to Setup, and then we'll open up Lightning App Builder. Then we'll click New to create a new page. And we'll select Record Page. We'll create a new contact page in this example. Next, we'll select our template. We'll go with the header and right sidebar option. And then the App Builder opens, and we can start selecting components in the sidebar and dragging and dropping them onto the page. And you'll also notice that the Properties panel opens on the right, and that's where you can control certain attributes of the specific components that you've added to your page. So as we just saw, it's really easy to find a component and drag it onto the page. You have about 30 standard components that are available to you. And if you or anyone in your org has developed custom components, those will show up here too. Same thing if you've installed any components from the App Exchange. So remember that the Lightning components are really the building blocks of your page. So this is what's going to allow you to show your record details, your related lists, and any other features that you want to show on your page. So next, let's take a look at how we can use the Lightning App Builder and standard components to address some common end-user pain points and use cases. So to set the stage for our scenario, the Dunder Mifflin Paper Company has been growing a lot, and they've hired a new admin. So they're using Salesforce. They have both sales and customer service users. And they've implemented Lightning, but they're currently struggling with adoption. So your task as the new admin is to work on some enhancements that will hopefully improve adoption. The IT team is concerned with maintenance down the road, so they've given you a couple ground rules. They'd like you to create a unified page for each object that will be shared across user groups, and keep things out of the box and avoid custom development. So on your first day, there's a list of feedback compiled by the Salesforce project team waiting for you. The sales team has some feedback on the account page. They're reporting that they have to hunt to find key information on the page. The buttons on the account page don't match what they need to do with the record. The account page is cluttered with service information that doesn't apply to that group. And metrics are important to them, and they want to see a visual of key sales data on the customer account. Similarly, the service team has some requests related to the case page. They want to be able to easily reference the related account information from the case. They're struggling with getting their agents to follow a unified process. They'd also like the service team to be more in the loop with promotions and other company updates so they can communicate them with customers. And finally, it's too many clicks for them to get to related order information from the case. So before you make any changes, it's a good idea to start by understanding the current state of the system and its usage and adoption. And there are a couple out-of-the-box tools that can help you with that I want to touch on. The first is the Lightning App Optimizer Report. So this is a great tool if you're trying to improve existing pages, and it's also really useful as a check after you've built your pages. And what this is going to do is compare all of the Lightning pages in your app against best practices, and it's going to tell you how you're doing and make some recommendations for how you can improve. This is going to consider both usability and performance considerations. So for example, if you have a ton of components on a page, it'll recommend that you put some in a tab or an accordion component, and that'll help with your page load time. So this is a really helpful starting point to find some updates that will likely have a positive impact on both performance and user satisfaction. Next, we have the Lightning Usage app. This is another built-in tool that can help you get useful information about system usage and adoption. You can access this in the app selector in the upper left, just like any other app. And this is going to give you a variety of helpful metrics, including who your most active users are, who's switching back to Classic, and most helpful for us here, your most frequently viewed pages. So from here, you may want to take a look at improving some of the pages where your users are working most frequently, or you may want to dig into why certain pages aren't showing up here at all. So turning back to our Dunder Mifflin scenario, you decide to tackle the sales team requirements first. So we can start by reviewing the current state of the account record. We can see that this is cluttered with lists. It's really hard to find the record details without scrolling. So there's definitely some room for improvement here. So we can create a new record page and address the team's requests one by one. So first, the team complained that they're struggling to find key information on the account record. And we can address this using the highlights panel to show key fields at the top of the record. And here we'll configure this in our compact layout to select the fields that we want to display. And once we've done that, we just drag and drop the highlights panel component onto the page, as we saw earlier in our demo. It's worth noting here that you can only set up one compact layout per record type. So if you have a lot of different user groups, you may need to have some discussion to come to a consensus around what you want to show in the compact layout. So let's take a look at how we would get to a compact layout and make changes. So we'll start from our Account tab. We'll go into the Setup menu and Edit Object. And then we'll select Compact Layouts. And here we can either create a new one, or we can clone an existing one and modify it. So we'll do that. From here, we can give it a name, and we'll modify the fields that we want to show up. Then when we're done, we'll save the record. And here we can modify the compact layout assignment if we want to make this one the version that shows to our users. So next, the sales team also reported that the buttons that they're seeing on the page don't fit what they need to do with the account record. They want to be able to see the View Account Hierarchy button and change the record owner, but they can't see those buttons. So we can address this using a combination of the Highlights panel and actions in our page layout. In Lightning, buttons show as actions in the Highlights panel. And in your properties, that's where you can set how many buttons you want to display on your record page. To actually change the buttons that are showing up on the page, you need to go to your page layout, and you need to modify the Salesforce Mobile and Lightning Experience section of the layout. And there you can make sure you're showing the buttons that you want to display. And another consideration here is that profile permissions will also influence the buttons that show up on your page. So for example, if you're struggling with getting the edit or delete buttons to show up, remember that users will only see those if they have the permission in either their permission set or profile. So here we've edited the layout so that the edit, delete, view account hierarchy, and change owner buttons will show in the highlights panel. And once we configure the layout, we need to make sure we also go into our highlights panel and edit the properties so that 4 buttons will show up. Another thing to know about actions in Lightning is that different types of actions show in different areas of the page. So for example, our chatter-related actions, the one you see in orange here, post and poll, are going to show in our chatter component. Anything related to activities, so that's anything related to tasks and events, is going to show in the activities component. And then our general actions in green are the ones that are going to show in the highlights panel. So to break this down a little bit more, here you can see how chatter actions appear to users. So here we have our chatter component set up as a tab in the right sidebar, and you can see the post and poll actions show up there. Next, it's similar for activity actions. So here we have the email button in our layout, so we see the email action in our activity component, which we have set up as a tab in our sidebar as well. And then finally, we have our general record actions that show in the highlights panel. So this would include any standard buttons, productivity actions, or object-specific quick actions that you have set up. So the main takeaway here is that your highlights panel settings and your page layouts work together to control the buttons that show up on your page. And different types of actions show up in different places. So before we take a look at the rest of the account updates, let's take a look at the options that you have to reduce clicks to related records in Lightning. So in general, it's a good idea to show users only the related lists that they need to avoid a cluttered page. And we have a couple components we can use to show related lists in Lightning. The first one is the related lists component. This is the plural version. And this is going to add all of the related lists from your page layout to your page. The bad thing about this is that it's going to add all of the related lists from your page layout to your page. So this can be pretty cluttered, and it may be a better option to look at the related list single component. What this is going to do is allow you to handpick the list that you want to put on your page. You can put different lists in different areas of your page, and you can show users just what they need. So that's often a better option. Another note is that in Lightning, by default, you only see the first 4 fields that you have in your related list in the page layout. So that's something to keep in mind as you're setting up your layouts. You can see all of the fields once you expand the list, but only 4 show by default. Finally, we have one additional option for showing related lists in Lightning, and that's the related list quick links component. And this is essentially a list of shortcuts to related lists. It's going to show the full expanded view of the list with more fields than the default view we just talked about. And it's also a good option because users can customize this for themselves. So this is definitely something you should consider adding to your pages and make sure your users are aware of so they can really personalize their view. So let's take a look at how users would customize their related lists. They would do this by going to the settings menu under their photo in the right corner. And from there, we'll go to Customize My Pages under Display and Layout. And here we can go object by object and select the list that you want to see and change the order. So next, you review the feedback that account pages are cluttered with service information that doesn't apply to the sales team. And we can address this using the tabs and single related list components. So the tabs component is great because it allows you to show different types of information in one area of your page without scrolling. This could be really good if you want to show information related to different groups or if you just want to break up your page in a clearer way. So here we can use this together with the single related list component to show just the list that our sales and service teams want to see. And here we're also using the record detail component in its own tab to show all of our record fields automatically. And when working with tabs, I always like to make sure the record details show first. I think generally this is what users expect to see so we can save them some clicks. It's worth noting that this may have a slight impact on performance. So I recommend testing this out in your org and seeing what's working for you and your users. It's likely only an issue if you have a lot of fields on your page. So let's take a look at how we would set up the tab and related list components in this scenario. So from our account page, we can see that we have a lot of lists. So we can go ahead and remove that and replace it with something that works better. We'll remove the record details for now as well, although we'll put those back in later. And now we can drag a tabs component onto the page. We'll make the record details show first. And then we'll go ahead and rename the related tab so we can create a tab for sales. And we'll add another tab for service. Now we can go back to our Details tab, and we'll drag the record detail component onto the page. From here, we can go to our Sales tab, and we'll add a single related list component. And we'll set this up for one of the lists that this group wants to see. We'll do contacts. And we'll change the display, so this shows as a list. We'll repeat those same steps to add all of the lists that the sales team wants to see to that tab, and then we'll do the same thing again to add the service team lists. So let's go back to our app and look at the changes. We see that we can see the details tab first thing. We can toggle over to sales and see just the list that that group expects to see. And the same with service. So we have a much cleaner view of the page. All right, so next, sales wants to see their key metrics at a glance without leaving the account record. So we can address this using a report chart component. The team shared that it would be helpful for them to see sales over time so they can monitor performance and trends. And so to do this, what we would do is create a report on the opportunity object. We want to make sure we add a chart to that report and save it in a publicly accessible folder. And then all we need to do is drag the report chart component onto the page in Lightning App Builder, and the report that we set up will automatically show as an option. So another really great feature of Lightning is the ability to show components conditionally. So we can show certain components just to certain users or show them only for certain types of records. We would do this using the Set Component Visibility option in the Component Properties panel. And we have a lot of flexibility here. You can set up criteria using filter logic, and you can even use custom permissions. So that would allow you to control component visibility via a permission set. Another thing you can do here is actually show a different version of a component to different user groups. And you could do this by adding different versions of the component to your page, and then setting up the visibility so that each group only sees one version. So with this, we can actually achieve very different user experiences all within one Lightning page. So let's take a look at how we would set the visibility for a component. We'll open up our account page and click into the chart component. We'll go into Set Component Visibility in the sidebar, and we'll click Add Filter. And here we'll toggle over to Advanced, and then we'll navigate through to the profile name. And here we'll set this up so that we only see this chart if profile contains sales, since this only applies to our sales team. And here we can see that we now have the orange eye icon that indicates visibility has been set for the component. So we'll save this, and then we can go back to our app and see how this appears for me as an admin. So we'll load the account record, and here we see that we don't see the report chart, but we expect that since I don't have a sales profile. So next, we can log in as a member of our sales team. And here, when we reload the record, we do see the chart as expected. So that's pretty cool. So to summarize, we made the account record less cluttered and easier to work with using standard components. So first, we added the highlights panel to show key fields at a glance, and we configured that in our compact layout. Next, we adjusted the actions that show on the page by updating our highlights panel and our page layout. Third, we broke up that long section of related lists into separate sections for sales and service, using tabs in the single related list component. And then last, we added a chart so that sales can see their key metrics without leaving the page, and we set that to be visible to just the users who need to see it. So our account record is looking pretty good, so you turn next to addressing the service team's requests. So you take a look at the current state of the case record. This is in better shape than the account, but there's still room for improvement, so we can create a new record page and work through the team's specific requests. So first, the service team mentioned that they need to be able to reference related account information from the case record. We can do this using the related record component. And we can set this up so that we can see details from the related account in a separate tab so that agents can easily toggle back and forth between the case and the account details. This component is handy because it'll allow you to do record creation if there isn't already a related record, as well as inline edit. And this does draw from actions for record create and update for the object, so you may need to set these up if you don't already have them, but the app builder will walk you through those steps. It's worth noting here as well that we could equally have chosen to set up a console app to address this pain point. Those are set up to allow users to easily work with different types of records in one screen. But I wanted to illustrate here that we can do this within a regular Lightning app as well. Next, the service team is having a hard time getting the team to follow the standard process for case resolution. So we can address this using a path. This gives you a visual indicator of case status, and it helps you guide users through a process. So here we've added some reminders and helpful links for new cases. And we can also highlight a set of key fields that we want to make sure agents pay attention to at each stage of the process. You can now configure paths for any pick list for most objects. So this can be a really good way to add a visual to your pages where you might have needed a more custom solution like an image formula in the past. So let's take a look at the steps to set up a path. We'll go into Path Settings from the Setup menu. And here you want to make sure you enable path if you haven't already done that in your org. I have, so we'll just go ahead and click New Path. We'll set up the name, object, and pick list that we want our path to draw from. In this case, we'll set it up for cases. And then the path editor opens, and here we can set up the guidance for success for each stage. We can set up custom content and edit that in our rich text editor here. We can even include custom links, and then we can also set up the fields that we want to show for each stage. We can show up to 5 fields. And then we can go stage by stage and enter in tailored information for each step. Then when we're done, we'll make sure that we activate our path so it'll be available to add to our page. And then we'll open up Builder. And now we just need to drag the path component onto our page. And the system is automatically going to recognize that we're on a case page and we want to use the path that we just set up. So there isn't really anything else we need to do here except save. Then we can go back to our page and check out how it looks. We see that we can expand the path. We can view the key fields and guidance for success for each stage. And we can toggle through the stages. And then we can even update the status from right within the path using the Mark as Current Status button. So next, the company wants agents to stay informed on sales, promotions, and other updates so they can share information with customers when they call in. And we can address this using the rich text component. This is another really flexible component. It allows you to display custom content to your users. And you can use this in combination with the filtering capability we talked about earlier to show certain information just to certain user groups. So here we can use this to set up an announcements banner. We can display this right underneath the highlights panel. And this way, our service team will be more in the loop on company updates. So the service team also complained that it's too many clicks right now for them to get to the related order information from the case. So our orders list is related to the parent account of the case. And in Lightning, we can actually display lists from a parent record on the page. So this means that for a case, we can show a related list related to either its contact or its account. And so in order to do this, we created a separate tab so that agents can easily locate the list. We'll use the single related list component, and then we'll just set up the account name as our parent record, and then the orders list shows as an option. There's an additional feature in Lightning that helps users be more productive that I want to highlight, and that's the utility bar. So this is really great for items that may have lived in the sidebar in Classic. So we can go ahead and add this to our Dunder Mifflin app, and we'll give users quick access to related items and notes. So they can access this wherever they are within the app. And there's really a lot that you can do with this. There are a number of standard options available. You can point to a specific list view or report chart that users use frequently, and you can use a rich text component to add custom links, either to records in Salesforce or maybe links to other systems you use, like SharePoint or Google Drive. And you can also add custom components for the utility bar, so you really have endless options for what you can do here. So to summarize, we made a number of updates to the case record that should make users more productive and reduce the time it takes them to find information. So first, we made details from the parent account accessible using the related record component. Then we added a path component to create a visual indicator of case status and guide agents through the process we want them to follow. Third, we added an announcement banner with a rich text component to keep the team in the loop on important updates. And then fourth, we made the related orders list accessible from the parent account. And finally, we added a utility bar to give agents quick access to tools wherever they are within the app. So we finished making our updates to case and account pages, and now we need to actually expose them to users. So in Lightning, you have more flexibility in the options you have for page assignment. So we can assign pages at several levels, either the org default, the app default, or more specific combinations of assignments for different profiles. And one of the cool things about this is that you can actually show different pages to the same user in different app contexts. So for example, if I have a sales and a service app, I might want to show different information on my account record in those different scenarios. So with Lightning app assignments, I can do that. But here, we'll keep things simple. We can just assign our pages as the org default, and that'll totally replace our old pages. And to do this, we would use the activation button in the Lightning app builder and follow the prompts from there. So there's an additional feature in Winter 19 that I want to highlight because it helps with personalizing user experience, and that is display density. So you can now toggle back and forth between the comfy or regular view and the new compact view. And to do this, you would go to the menu under your name, and you can select your display density in the section there. And here's a comparison of the different views using an account record. So you can see that the new compact view really reduces the vertical space, that's the one on the right, that fields take up and lets you fit a lot more on the screen. So this can be a good option for users who work with records with a lot of fields. Not sure what happened to our slide there. So in conclusion, using Lightning and standard components, we were able to create revamped record pages that address a lot of our Dunder Mifflin users' pain points and will hopefully make them more productive. So obviously this was a fictitious scenario, but a lot of these pain points are similar to real feedback that I and my team hear from users all the time. So I hope that you took away some ideas for use in your own org. We looked at just some of the standard components that were available today, but we were able to make better use of screen real estate, emphasize key details, and show targeted information to certain users. And we did all of this without any custom code or development time. One other thing I want to mention before we conclude is the app exchange for components. So here you can find a lot of components built by partners that can greatly expand what you can do with your record pages without any code. And you can access that right within Lightning App Builder from the link at the bottom of the sidebar. All right, so we just scratched the surface on a number of topics out there. There are a lot of really helpful trailheads on these topics if you want to learn more and get hands-on experience with Lightning app customization and user experience design. So thanks so much for being here. I'm happy to take questions if there are any.
Hi. So in the Lightning components, while designing the record page, I did see Quip as one of the standard component. So when the Quip is moved to the record page, whoever is the owner of the record, will they handle the permissions for granting access to other users, or is it going to be administrator who will be deciding it? So the reason I'm asking this question is, we are using Quip outside Salesforce, and the access is handled by whoever is initially creating that particular Quip document. When integrated within Salesforce, how does it work?
That's a great question. I actually don't have personal experience using the Quip component yet, but there are some members from my team here who may know the answer, so if you'd like to come up after the talk, we can chat through that.
Yep, got one back here. Got two.
We've used custom record types to determine page layout and visibility for different records. But it looks like we could use the component visibility instead and perhaps do like a standard layout across the board, or at least across different groups. Can you speak to that a little bit? Do you have any recommendations or things we should consider making that decision?
Yeah, that's a great question too. So I think your page layout is going to still control the different fields that you show on the page. So the record type will allow you to show different page layouts to users, meaning different kind of combinations of fields. So I think that the Component visibility is a really helpful feature, but if you have a lot of differences between your pages, that could also get a little difficult to manage. So I think you just kind of have to, it depends on your scenario. If you have a lot of differences, you may be looking at different pages. If you have just a few key components that you want to show slightly differently, then that may make more sense.
Hi, on the sales page layouts, when you pulled in the chart, so that was the chart based on the opportunities of the account. Did you have to put in any special filters to automatically filter on the account that it's displayed on, or is that all pulled in automatically?
Yeah, that's a good question. So I'll have to check on the details, but I believe that we did need to set the parent record as the account for that one. So.
Thank you.
Anyone else? Yep, one up here.
Hi, I was wondering if you had any tips for measuring the improvements that you make through the interface. Like, those are obviously very good, but I was wondering if you had any suggestions, plugins, or processes.
Sure. Well,
to
I
measure
think thing number one is always end user feedback. So throughout this process, if you can be checking with your end users before you roll things out, getting their feedback, and then after, that's great. But I think also the Lightning App Optimizer, as I mentioned, is a really good tool to make sure that you're following best practices.
It's the record page layout templates and stuff, deciding, that's your first hurdle. It's like, okay, 2, 3, what am I doing here?
Yeah.
So which one, and I saw where you do, like the one you chose seems to be the more common one to use. Just some general thoughts on, like, what do I think about when I try to pick a page template?
Yeah, so I think, again, it does kind of depend on the components that you're planning on adding to your page, maybe also the type of app that you're using. I am partial just to the templates that have one wide layout with a sidebar, because I think those are the most flexible. But again, it just depends on your scenario.
Just to kind of piggyback on that, do you recommend showing similar templates across different apps when it's all going to the same end user, or do you more go along with different views? Like, how do you go about that?
Yeah, I think there's definitely a benefit to having kind of visual similarity throughout your pages so that users know where to look for certain things. So that definitely, I think, is something I would recommend, unless you have a strong reason to set things up in a very strikingly different way because you want to emphasize the different context.
All right, anything else? Nope. We got about 1.5 minutes left, so feel free to come and bug Caitlin up here, but otherwise, thank you very much, Caitlin. Right,